Hello out there, folks. How are you doing? I hope you're doing wonderful, as I am, as always, as I try to be. But I hope you are keeping your prayers up tight. Hope you're keeping your faith locked up. Hope you're sharing, because people need not only the word, but people need comfort in addition to the word. God and Jesus are everything when they provide you the word to live by. And you got people that don't even live by it. People say it's hard. As long as you know your faith in someone, because God is someone and Jesus is someone, that's all that matters. So there's some I call it distractions, but some things going on there in Israel right now. Crazy, because that conflict just stems, centuries ago. It's like soil and a belief, How crazy that could turn your world upside down with soil, land, and belief. Give them bread and circuses, and they will never revolt. Give them bread and circuses, and they will never revolt. We get so distracted by everything, and you have to obviously always look at the bigger picture and the meaning behind it and what's really truly happening on a global scale. What's to come of this? These series of attacks. Is this just a blind side for, China to take Taiwan? I don't know. Is this all a distraction for something? Satan's trying hard. He is trying hard. But our faith will get us through, and that's all that really matters, folks. That is really all that matters. And it doesn't take just a small community. It really just takes everywhere, every nook and corner where there's a light shines. Where there's dark, there's light of the world. You can't be worldly, but as a world, as people, if we all believed in God and Jesus and revolted against these people, the good of love, that just withstands everything. It goes back to the 1967 Six-Day War, where Israel won. And the war was after weeks of taunts by the leader of Egypt, and you got Syria, Jordan, Iraq, destroying Israel, wanting. So that war broke out, and the Israel and the Arab neighbors, they changed the map of the Middle East, and Egypt's leader vowed to destroy Israel in May. Got mass troops attacking Israel. And you got Israel doing its thing with their raids and the air raids, and just casualties is unbelievable. But when it ends, you get a ceasefire and the borders just had to be redrawn. So you got a divided city of Jerusalem that became under Israeli control. You got the West Bank, the Golan Heights, and the Sinai. How important those are. So what? Israel's going to prevail. Yet again. But you always have to look at the darker side of roots. Then you'll really get the big picture. Because Israel has some dark roots too. And Jesus knew that. And so did God. Come on, it stems to the Old Testament. Leading away, right? He makes a covenant. What do? We always seem to steer away. And it's kind of crazy. I mentioned this before, but now it's getting more prevalent in especially the younger demographic all over the world, and even the older. People are just losing faith. And it's kind of devastating when you statistically put them together. But faith prevails. God and Jesus prevails. Satan's only granted a certain allotment of time. Before Jesus descends, and we get to see this great new kingdom. But of course, everything has to kind of transpire and take place. It's kind of like a stage, how the world's a stage? Mere actors of a drama. Oh, what the drama conveys. Faith was lost back in the day, and it's just crazy how it's losing its momentum now. But then you get these false preachers and these churches that try to do things different, try to incorporate a chat GPT in their sermons and everything to go digital, and I don't know, some territories that we don't really need to cross into. But when you feel you're on the right path and you're getting steered rightfully from a pastor or whoever, and then all of a sudden it just kind of becomes a shamble or a sham. Like it's disconcerting, right? But we can't lose faith as individuals. So we're going to kick this off with the woman and the dragon. Oh yeah. Oh, we're going to kick it off. And there's always a great portent. And that's where you got to keep looking up at the sky. Because when you don't look up and you're looking at your feet or your phone or whatever, and you don't take the chance to look up, you'll never see the signs. And more than ever, we need to pay attention to these portents. Are you ready?
Amen.
Yeah, you are. I'm Daniel, and this is the Emmanuel Podcast. Let's get it going. A great portent appeared in heaven, a woman clothed with the sun, with the moon under her feet, and on her head a crown of 12 stars. She was pregnant and was crying out in birth pangs. In the agony of giving birth, then another portent appeared in heaven, a great red dragon with 7 heads and 10 horns, and 7 diadems on his heads. His tail swept down a third of the stars of heaven and threw them to the earth. Then the dragon stood before the woman who was about to bear a child, so that he might devour her child as soon as it was born. Kind of like almost like the firstborn, like back in the Old Testament, where the Pharaoh was like, "Yeah, just toss him in the river." And she gave birth to a son, a male child, who was to rule all the nations with a rod of iron. But her child was snatched away and taken to God and to his throne. And the woman fled into the wilderness, where she has a place prepared by God, so that there she can be nourished for 1,260 days. There's that 1,260 days again, folks. Snatched away. So I feel I'm gonna break this up. I'm gonna do a 3-parter because it just makes sense to. So we did a 3-part and the 2 witnesses, obviously. Hopefully you've enjoyed that. Actually, how about this? Hopefully you've enjoyed all my pods. Hopefully you took a stroll and you were immersing yourself in this journey with me, right? But I figured the second part be Michael defeats the dragon, then we'll go into third. The dragon fights again on Earth. Here's your little 3-part series, folks. Here we go. Come on, here's a doozy. So you got the woman, representing God's faithful people who were waiting for the Messiah. So you got these 12 stars, and it represents the 12 tribes of Israel. So God sets apart the Jews for himself. So, you go back to Romans, and the nation gave birth to the Messiah. So the male child is Jesus, born of a devout Jew named Mary. So if you go to Luke, you got the evil King Herod immediately tried to destroy the infant Jesus. That's why I said back in the Old Testament, you got the Pharaoh wanting to throw the firstborns into the river. So Herod's desire to kill this newborn king saw as a threat to his throne, so it was motivated by Satan, of course, the red dragon. Obviously, we were going to associate that, because red, why not? Wanted to kill the world's savior. Because you can't save yourself, right, folks? You can only be saved by Jesus Christ. And boy, when you let that happen in your hearts, well, let me tell you. So, you got Christ in the town of Bethlehem. It's huge, obviously in the cosmic era. So you have this red dragon, Satan. He has 7 heads. He has 10 horns and 7 crowns. So that's the power in the kingdoms. So you can like go over to Babylon. You go all over. And of course, Satan rules. 7 heads and 10 horns, you know. So you got the stars that plunge to the earth with him, usually considered to be the angels, the fallen angels. And then we did a little mix action, and then we get the Nephilim. How we doing? And what's crazy is that when you think of how the angels fell with Satan, they became his demons, which is so true. So you got 1/3 of all the angels in heaven fell with Satan. So the desert represents a place of spiritual refuge and protection from Satan, because God aided the woman's escape into the desert. So we can be sure that he offers security to all true believers. And Satan always attacks God's people, but God keeps them spiritually secure, and some will experience physical harm, but all will be protected from spiritual harm. God will not let Satan take the souls of God's true followers when Satan attacks are overpowering, because we always have to remember that God rules all. That's just how he reigns everything, and he just rules all. And he rules your heart if you let him. So if you got the 7 diadems on his head, so the dragon is great power. He's got royal authority. He wants to be king. Obviously, Satan always wanted to be over God. That's just how it's always been. Because you can parallel it from Daniel. And if you looked at the revival of the Roman Empire, in that you got the 7 heads and the 10 horns. So that's also like a little horn of Daniel. So you got the world ruler, and then the tribulation, and then that, you know, who reigns over the Roman Empire. That's why I said give them bread. So obviously you get many who remains in the steadfast to the faith, but you have Michael and his angels, and some of them didn't abode in the truth. So then you get the revolt up in heaven. Now you got enemies against God and his kingdom. How crazy Herod, as soon as he caught wind, he wanted to kill Jesus. And it was fulfilled throughout Jesus' life as Satan attacked him as well. And Jesus always rules the world with a rod of iron. And the return of Jesus, the starting point and the ending point of Jesus' earthly work. You know, Jesus is, believe it or not, every single book in the Bible is referenced somewhat to Jesus. It's literally referenced. Jesus is definitely referenced throughout the Old Testament and obviously the New. And you figure that it couldn't be the birth of a church because it's the birth of a child. So either Mary or Israel, but the only two women who could have given birth to Jesus. So you got the woman is Israel, not Mary. So in clarity, it could be the woman is Israel and not Mary, but how could Mary flee into the wilderness? So you got 3.5 period. So that goes to 7 years of Daniel, the Daniel 9 prophecy. So then you got the ascension of Jesus, but you got yet to occur. So then you got the 70th week of Daniel, and that lies hundreds of years. So some believe that it could be like a wilderness in the rock city of Petra, and that's south of the Dead Sea. So remember John when Jesus is like, I go to prepare a place for you? Well, that's like, you know, God's planning here on earth as well as in heaven. And what a beautiful, beautiful thing. Oh, folks, yeah, we are going to kick the second part off. Michael defeats the dragon. Welcome to another edition of the 3-part series, folks, where we break it down. This is a good one because it gets really, now, you know, because we're reaching the end, so it's getting more intense, especially with the breakdown. But it's all a great meaning, and you know, Satan hates you. Satan hates believers, and he wants you to join his army. But you know what? God does his works down here, and he does his work as well up in heaven. And people will say, oh, there's 8 billion of us, so how can he watch all of us? Well, it's God. It's God and not a Big Bang Theory, so. You got to put your hope in something, and why not put your hope in God and Jesus, who can steer you in the right direction? And look for portents in the sky, or anything. Look at any sign, little sign, big sign, something with meaning in your life. It's a beautiful thing. Especially when you have God and Jesus with you. So I pray that Israel gets through this. I pray that there's no deception behind the curtain. And I pray that Jesus' rod of iron is and will happen. And we better be ready for it, folks, because the fight's coming to your heart. So your armor of God better be up more than anything, because you definitely need it, and your friends and family need it, and everyone around the world, because, you know, just because this faith is diminishing in the statistics, why don't we just revive it back through our works that pleases God and Jesus? That's the blessing in disguise. Folks, I hope you have an amazing night. Stay blessed, because you are. I'm Daniel, and this is the Emmanuel Podcast.